this is your announcement that you're running for, you're going to contest the presidency of Liberia for 2017. Am I correct?
Well, I don't know whether it's an announcement. I don't know whether it's an announcement, but here's the issue, though. I've been approached by quite a number of people, both domestically and internationally, to take a look at running for president. So the quick answer is we'll stay in the formative stages in planning that. And at some point, my team will make a determination whether to go forward. But at this point, the chances are probably 90%.
90%. Okay. So why do you think you're the best candidate for the presidency? Because in order to run, you must think that you have a chance of winning.
Well, if I were to run for president, what distinguishes me from the crowd is the whole issue of integrity. After Ellen Salif administration has ended in 2018, there's going to be a lot of financial challenges that the country is going to face. And we are going to continue to depend on domestic resources to move the country forward. We are going to also continue to engage the international community to move the country forward. And from what I'm gathering, both internationally and domestically, people want to give money to somebody they trust. And at this point, it is hard to imagine those who are competing for the presidency that even John Morlu would trust them with my money. So the whole issue is Liberia needs money. And if we don't have somebody there that can instantly generate credibility and trust, the international community are going to play a wait-and-see approach. And that could take 2 years for that particular person to kind of gain the confidence of the international community. So in the nutshell, I think it's credibility, I think it's trust. And I'm an action-oriented person. I think people know me. I say what I do what I say I would do.
You talked about the financial challenges that the country will face. What specific financial challenges are you referring to?
Well, number one, we have an economy that is pretty much in recession, I think. We got an escalating and worsening exchange rate, and inflation is going to be a problem going down the road. We have one of the highest in the region in terms of interest rate for people to be able to get loan to start new businesses. We got an economy that is heavily dependent on natural resources. And more importantly, as the president said, we have about $730 million debt. There's protection out there. But by the time our administration has ended, we're looking at $1 billion, $1.2 billion. The interest payment alone on that loan will take away needed resources to build school, to invest in education and healthcare and infrastructure. So you're going to need somebody who has the experience both in working in the government and the private sector, and as well as in civil society, and who has also worked internationally, and who understands governance issue to actually move that country forward. So you're going to need creative person. You will not, and I think one of the mistakes that we have made in Liberia over the years, we look at people's education rather than looking at relevant experience. For example, if you brought another person from the World Bank or the IMF or the international community or some big government institution that is bureaucracy, they are accustomed to live in the bureaucracy. Mm-hmm. You need somebody that understands markets, that understands how to create jobs. And I have done that both in government and I'm doing that now in the private sector. So again, in the nutshell, Liberia is going to face these financial challenges and you are going to need somebody who understands how to move the country forward, how to get us out of the financial mess.
Okay. So, now that we've agreed that you're running for president, or at least almost intending to, have you met all the qualifications for the presidency? Will you have met all that by 2017?
I've met, I think, and I know I've met all the qualifications that is there in the Constitution.
Including the 10-year residency clause?
I have met all the qualifications that's required, yes.
So you've been living, you've maintained a residency in
yes,
Liberia for
I have a residency in Liberia.
And the citizenship requirement?
Yes, and the age requirement. So,
Okay.
so I don't think the requirement is going to be the issue for me. I think the most important final decision making is going to be number one, whether we can put together a team that can win.
Okay.
Because I believe strongly running for president in Liberia has always been the norm. Everybody wants to run for president.
Mm.
But I think this time around, instead of electing an individual, I think we have to elect a team. So when I tell you about 90%, it's all going to depend on whether I and the people who are supporting me can put together a team that is representative of the capacity that Liberia has.
Okay. So you're talking about putting a team together. Now, what would a Morlu cabinet look like? And what are the top three priorities that your administration would address?
The number one public enemy in Liberia is corruption. Okay? Nothing is going to happen in that country. I mean, absolutely nothing of importance is going to happen in that country until we deal with the issue of corruption. Whether you go back to 1847, to Joseph J.K. Rabot, to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the number one issue that has retarded the growth of Liberia is the issue of financial mismanagement and corruption. So, for example, I don't see any candidate out there that has any better plan to build infrastructure, to build education, to build healthcare system than Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf have had the benefit of the international community and the best brain from Harvard to Cornell, to all the Ivy League schools. They have lended their intellectual capacity to put together the best documents. Now, I'll give you some example. Poverty reduction strategy, democratic dividends. We now got Vision 2030. We have Agenda for Transformation. You go on and on and on. Ellen said it has the best plan. But you know why she hasn't succeeded? Because every dollar that is stolen is one less dollar that is left for her to implement her poverty reduction strategy or agenda for transformation. So unless we deal with the issue of corruption, something that she called a vampire, no good plan is going to move Liberia forward. Now, if we can handle the issue of corruption, guess what? International community is going to come in. Business people are going to come in because you know what? Real strong business people who really mean well for Liberia will not want to invest in a corrupt environment because corruption creates imperfection. They reallocate resources to people who don't need it, deprive people who actually need it. They undermine private sector. And as long as the private sector is not functioning, Liberia will not move forward. So again, whether you're talking about the private sector as the engine of economic growth, whether you're talking about healthcare and investment in health delivery system, whether you're talking about education, infrastructure, human capital development, all of these things are important. And in a government, we have to do those things to move the country forward. But if money is stolen and corruption is the way of life, guess what? Every dollar will be taken away and banked in some other country. And this is what I say. If I were president today, the first thing I would do, I would sign a compact with the international community, particularly America and Europe. The same way Kenya is doing, the same way Nigeria is doing, we have to recover every penny that is stolen. And this is where we test the commitment of the international community for good governance. And I believe the Americans will be happy. They're doing it for Kenya, they have done it for Rwanda, they are doing it for even Guinea-Bissau, Equatorial Guinea. In these countries, if they can do it for this country, how about Liberia, the stepchild? But we need a president that will take the bold step and tell America, look, thank you for all the help you're giving us, but we're not seeing the benefit because corruption has undermined our ability. And I think that's what the president of Liberia should have taken Barack Obama offer to fight corruption, just the same way he helped Liberia fight Ebola.
So this compact, can you just clarify specifically what you're talking about?
Well, for example, like in Kenya now, okay? The Americans in Kenya have an agreement. They will fight illicit flow of money All right? If you're in Liberia, you make it $500, but all of a sudden you got $1 million hotel and the money is being moved around, who will make sure to determine where you got it from? If you can determine, we'll take it from you. Number two, we will make sure that those who have engaged in corruption don't flee to America and Europe and live in heaven. You'll be brought back. So these are some of the things that Kenya is doing. These are some of the things that Nigeria is doing that I think we should reach out to America, and America, with their capacity and their understanding of international flow of money, can help or recover some of those assets and serve as a deterrence for future officials of government.
But Liberia already has an agreement with the U.S. in terms of transferring fugitives or helping investigate issues. What would be the difference?
Well, transferring fugitive,
Yeah.
that's a long-standing agreement, right,
Okay.
between the country. What I'm proposing is an agreement on financial crime.
Okay.
Under the Patriot Act, under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, there are a lot of provisions within the U.S. law that Liberia can take advantage of to specifically, and I'm not talking about somebody who go murder somebody around here and they have to be sent back. I'm talking about financial crime. We have to focus our attention on asset recovery, confiscating stolen assets, and I think America would be important in that direction. The British are doing it for Nigeria, the Americans are doing it, and I think by reaching out to the United States, corrupt people in Liberia will have no more safe haven.
So besides corruption, do you have any other priorities?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I told you from the beginning, and the president, we want the people to have good health care. So we will invest massively in healthcare. This is what I'll say: for every dollar that is saved from corruption, 60% goes towards healthcare, 40% goes towards education. Okay? For example, Liberia today have 51 doctors. We're a country of 4.2 million. That's a lot of people to very few medical professionals. So here's one plan I would suggest. And this is what we will do immediately. We will examine the national budget, okay? And I can tell you we'll find roughly, right now, $50 to $60 million that will enable us to bring 225 medical doctors at somewhere between 120 to 150,000 Liberian medical doctors. Those who are retired and those who just want to return back home. It's not going to be somebody from another country, real Liberians who want to return home. We can find and sign a contract with them. Within 5 years, they can return home. And part of their working in Liberia as medical doctors, they'll be teaching at a medical school. Getting the capacity of the medical system. So there are ways you can quickly, without even looking for additional money, just within the context of the Liberian government budget, you can be able to extract money from savings to be able to do that. The other issue is education, right? You know what Thomas Jefferson said? The biggest challenge to democracy is our educated society. This is why when I went to the General Auditing Commission, I made a choice. They could live in a mansion. They could have big vehicle. They all could have gasoline. I cut all of that off. I said, okay, instead of having me distribute gas coupons on you guys or giving you guys vehicle, everybody go buy their own vehicle if you have money. But we're going to take every penny and we're going to put it in capacity building and training. During my tenure at the GAC, over 200 people had the opportunity to go overseas. Whether they were doing attachment in Uganda, whether they were working in Ghana, they had the opportunity to be able to be exposed to a different system. 45 plus people had the opportunity to get an MBA. We didn't have to. And I had the smallest budget, right? My budget at GAC when I got there was 450,000. By the time I left, it was about 3.2 million. Within that budget, I was also auditing over 90 institutions of government. 90 institutions of government on a $3.2 million. When one audit conducted by KPMG cost $1.6 million. But as an institution, the government of Liberia gave me $3.2 million. And within that 3.2 million, we were able to educate 45 people with MBAs. Because we forgo vehicle, we forgo gasoline, we forgo buying generator every year. And we use that money to educate people. And I believe if we could do it at GSC with such little budget, today GSC budget is twice the budget that I had when I was there. And I did more audits. Right? And so if I could use the little $3.2 million, do all the HIPIC audit, did everything I was supposed to do, plus send people overseas, plus educate people with MBAs, multiply that across government. If we all were doing that 45% per institution, per every 3 years, you have an educated society.
So, since we're talking about your time at the General Auditing Commission, when you were there were a lot of commentary that you were very political, and one of the statements you made while you were there was that Ellen, President Sirleaf's government was 3 times more corrupt than the past transitional government. Was that an accurate and fair assessment? And if so, what specifically in her administration did you identify that made you come to that assessment?
That's a good question, right? Let me give you another example. I went to Liberia. I said the government was 3 times corrupt. I discussed this with the president. She was aware of it even before I made a pronouncement. She did not dispute the facts before I made a pronouncement. And even after I made a pronouncement, she's never disputed the fact. They only say they meant political. But that's what every Liberian said. If you are a Liberian to do bank reconciliation, to account for public money, they say you're political or you wish hunting me. So it's a standard defense. So I'm not even going to give credence to that. But maybe the Liberian people would like to hear the facts for the first time. One, on June 9th, President Sirleaf and I met and discussed the 3 times corrupt. That was the week before. I mean, May 9th, not June 9th. May 9th. Let me take that.
What year?
2007. Okay? I think she was coming to the stage the next day. We discussed it. She was aware. And she knew the problems. Because number one, we were very close personally. Besides Auditor General, we were very close as family friends. So I could tell her anything. So she knew. Here's the other issue. When I said 3 times corrupt, every international community, the American ambassador, Booth, flew from America to come and challenge me to prove it. The EU said I had to prove it. GMAP said I had to prove it. So I said, fine. The American ambassador spent 7 hours in my office. And after that, he went back to the president and told the president, leave him alone. EU told him, leave him alone. You know why they said we should leave it alone? Because they know I was up for a very big public fight. So we agreed that that issue be laid to rest, and as a government, we all move forward. But here's the point that you need to realize. You have lived in America, you are experienced. EU was paying me. I was on contract with the European Union. If I could not prove my 3 times corrupt, you think they would have kept me on? They would not have kept me on. Not only did they keep me on, they renewed my contract for another 2 years. I was only supposed to be in Liberia for 2 years to get Liberia to HIPIC. And after that, my contract was ended. That's why I took a leave of absence from Unisys, where I work. I never quit my job because I only go for 2 years. But I did such an awesome job that Louis Mitchell, the EU ambassador for Africa, the EU commissioner for Africa, wrote me and the president and said, this guy has gone beyond expectation. And we have asked him to kindly stay on for another 2 years. So again, the whole 3 times corrupt was not something that was said in vacuum, was not something that was not supported. Because if it was not supported, I was hired under the GMAP program. There was a lot of pressure for me to be dismissed. In fact, some people even called for me to be charged with treason. Okay? It didn't happen thanks to Clayton Watterson. Senator Clayton Watterson had to intervene and said, no, the guy is doing his job. You can challenge him on the fight, but you cannot charge him with treason. But in any event, I won't go to the details because that was an agreement. We said, I'm going to be back, going to move forward. But I'll give you one example, right? I'll give you one example quickly. I go to Liberia. Before I get there, I'll talk to all finance ministers that I could lay my hands on, former finance ministers. The first thing they all told me, go and ask for the carry forward balance. Those who don't know accounting, let me put it in a very simple term. Whenever you end the month, they send you a bank statement, right? In your bank statement, you either got $0 or you got -$, or you got some dollar left over that you carry over the next month, right? In the case of Liberia, every year, there's no balance carry forward. So that means Liberia begin afresh every year. So all the finance ministers that I talked to told me where the biggest corruption happened is the money that is left over because it's not factored in the next year budget. So when I went to Liberia, I asked for the bank statement. The government of Liberia refused to give me the bank statement. But guess what? I managed to get hold of it. And in the bank statement, huge cash was sitting there. And I knew that was around May 15, that the government of Liberia was spending about $15 million a month. And my projections show, just based on the cash, they were getting about $15 million, but they were collecting about $12 to $13 million. So with the bank balance, they were going to end up the year with $47 million cash. That's where all my problems started. So I went to all the officials of government. I said, y'all got to disclose this. Nobody wanted to disclose it. So I published it. And guess what? Now, if you look at the 2007-2008 budget, it was the first time in Liberia that you will see a carry forward balance. So the question becomes, what has been happening to all the carry forward balances? I wasn't smart enough to figure that out. It was the former ministers of finance that I asked. I said, look, what should I be looking for? And they said the first thing you should look for is X, Y, and Z. And that's where I look for the carry forward balance. So now, people will argue that, oh, you never had any proof. But do they know what it took me to disclose that $47 million carry forward balance? It took a lot of inside fight within the government to get that done. And I believe in transparency. I believe there was Liberian people government money, and under the law, I was supposed to be transparent and disclose everything. So guess what? Every Liberian knew for the first time in 2007 that there was something called carry forward balance.
Okay. So moving on, as somebody who's been working outside of Liberia for the last 5 years or so, do you, it's become a trend in the modern Liberian political era that, so-called outsiders or people who haven't been living continuously in the country feel that they're competent enough to and qualified to run for office, even if they haven't had regular interaction with the people of Liberia on a day-to-day basis. A lot of Liberians are a bit resentful of that. I'm sure you're aware of this. And they see this as like a opportunity for people abroad to come and exploit opportunities that exist in public office. How would you?
I have never had such a problem. Guess what? Because I get along with the Liberian people very well.
Okay.
Whether I'm in Nimba or whether I'm in Lofa County, I think Liberian people can tell the difference. Okay, I live in Monrovia. And I fought a government for 4 years. I survived. You know how I survived? Because of the trust of the Liberian people. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What Liberian people are upset with, though, is a group of people who have the mindset that Liberia is a farm. You leave your luxury home and your mortgages in America, you go to Liberia, you steal, you grab, you come back here and live. That's the problem Liberian people have. I don't think they have a problem with individuals, but the action of a few individuals, right? The action of a few individuals had tinted the perception of the Liberian people as to what people who are coming from the outside are all about. And it is understandable for a typical person living in Liberia that have gone through the difficulty of living in war and post-war country, to see a few group of people who jump away from America because of patronage and political connection, coming into the country overnight, they're wealthy. Corruption creates resentment and anger. Economist magazine said that when they reviewed the 10 years of peace in Liberia. They said the number one thing on the lips of Liberian people is corruption. And that's creating resentment and anger. For example, how do you think if I live in Liberia, if I had lived throughout that war and post-war, and then I hear on the radio, some lady came from America and the national port of authority, $800,000 in one or two transactions is gone. 800 United States dollars. How you think I would feel? Most of these people can't even afford money to go to send their kids to school. But people who couldn't make a living anywhere else, today are making a lot of money in Liberia. When the late Harry Green writes about $80 million at no car, and Chris Neo say, I left $31 million. Poof, Noka is going bankrupt. And who is Anoka? The majority of the people who are Anoka are people from America. So that creates resentment. But if we, as Liberians in the diaspora, in and out of Liberia, went in and said, you know what? I'm going to come to our value, not to take away. I'm not going to come and be arrogant and take your money because I'm closer to the presidency and go scot-free. If we were doing that, there would be no resentment. Or even if there is resentment, it will be minimized. But as long as corruption is put in the face of people who have struggled and lived their life in war, and they are suffering the effects of living in a post-war country, but they're seeing the few people that are coming and living a lavish life, I don't see why they won't be resentful. I would. If I were in that situation, I would do exactly what Liberians in Liberia are doing to people in the diaspora, because we have to behave. And this is why you asked me, what kind of administration will you guys have? Right? It has to be a new set of people. Right? And when I told you about building a team, if you brought in people like you who have a real degree, okay? And one of the problems in Liberia, people Google these days. They know when you come in, you see you got PhD, and then you got it online, and they see you driving car, they're going to start questioning, okay? But what we need to do to change our country is the same thing Barack Obama did for America, is the same thing Bernie Sanders is doing, is the same thing Donald Trump is doing. You got to go beyond the establishment. You got to bring a new set of people that have not been tainted by the corrupt system. And that's the mistake Ellen Sally made, though. She brought in the same old people that have been doing the same thing over and over and over again. Even if Ellen Sally was Jesus Christ, and she brought those kind of people around her, guess what? She won't succeed. And I told her from the get-go, go outside of the political establishment. But the outside of the political establishment she goes for the children of people who have been part of the political establishment, failing to realize these children grew up with their parents, and people learn from their parents also. So for me, I want people who don't have a brand name in Liberia. The same way I have been able to build a reputation for myself around the world, other Liberians can do it if they are given the opportunity. So we have to reach out beyond. And if Liberians in Liberia saw new people that were new faces, educated people, people who have compassion for the country, were coming back, guess what? The resistance will decrease. But the caliber of people that are in government today, if I were living in Liberia as an ordinary, I was Auditor General, and I was mad like hell about their lifestyle, about how they were mismanaging government money, and how they were arrogantly putting corruption in the face of mass suffering. If I lived there, Jeff, I'll be as angry as these people are.
You've talked a lot about abuses of government funds and how you would combat it. We still keep getting a lot of news about perceived misuse of government funds. Particularly, you've most likely heard about the Speaker Alex Tyler, and in his own words, he unveiled his hotel that was worth $1 million. So you can, it's easier to control people that are directly under you within the ministries and everything. But what type of how would you implement some measures? What type of measures would you implement to deal with people like the legislature, who they're in charge of appropriations and just trying to ensure that you get them under control?
Okay, let me give you an example. I told President Salih then, I sent her a nice article that was written in an Economist magazine. Okay, the president of Argentina, all right, comes to power, female president. She had a choice to reform the governing system, to get corruption out of the system through reform, or punish people so that they know there's a price for mismanagement, so that they know there's a price for corruption. Right? So what did she do? Well, if you go the reform route, guess what you're going to get? You need legislature to help you reform. You need laws. You need their cooperation. And a give and take in a corrupt environment like Liberia, you can't go after a speaker that you need for him to pass it in bill. If I were to become president of Liberia, I'll be like Argentina. First 6 years, guess what I would do? No legislation. We got enough laws on the book. I will use the law to arrest them, jail the speaker, like we do in America. Arrest him, jail them. Okay? Jail them. I mean, he's a big guy. Let everybody know, where did you get $1 million from? That's what when I was talking about illicit flow of money, right? That's what they do in the U.S. If you are making $50,000, all of a sudden $1 million show up in your bank account in the U.S., it got to be reportable to the IRS, right? So the first thing you do, you ask them. If they can't account for it, you take it from them. And then you jail them. In this country, Congress people go to jail, right? I mean, we saw Congressman Jefferson, he's in jail. So what you have to do, you have to tell the legislature, I don't want you to pass no law. I'm going to use the existing laws on the book. And that's the strategy I told President Salih that we use. Forget about reform. Because guess what, Jeff? If you try to reform, people will undermine the reform process. Because reform means their bread and butter through corruption is going to be taken away. They're going to resist. Even in this country, they will resist. This is why when I went to Liberia, I went like a sheriff, right? I mean, that's what people say, the man political, the man this, he's harsh, he's unfriendly. No, I was a sheriff in town. When I come in town and you are the president of Liberia, you listen. When you are the speaker, you listen. So guess what? Again, it's all about leadership and the strategy that you use. Number one, Jeff, nobody in Liberia that I know or internationally will say if John Morlu were leader today, who food to steal $1? I'll be sitting in the marshal auditing there as they spend public money. So in this country, you went to graduate school, you live in this country, what did they say? The tune at the top. Corporate governance is all about the tune at the top. In my little company where I sit today, if I'm corrupt, my staff is going to be corrupt because they take the cues from me. So that's what I told President Salih, rise above, punish. Reward and punish. It's a very, very proven and time-tested method to bring about fundamental change in any country. In this country, America, when we come here, we wear our seatbelt. Why do we wear our seatbelt? Because when you get caught, you're going to pay a lot of money in fines, right? Why do we not go and steal public money? Because you're gonna go to jail. So a Liberian is the same Liberian. Live in Liberia one way, live in America another way. But they're still Liberian. So people who say Liberians are inherently corrupt, I don't believe it. Because guess what? When they're in London, they don't do that foolishness in London. When they're working here at AT&T or MCR or the big company, they don't go strike deals and undermine the company interest. So, but what did they do in Liberia? Because it's a country that have nurture impunity, that bases everything on patronage. So, my answer to you about speaker, about legislature, about people in government, you gotta punish one of them. Okay? And here's another thing that Brent need to understand. Everybody in Liberia say, I took a loan. The first thing they tell you, I took a loan to build my house or to build my hotel. I took a loan to do this. But I told the outgoing Central Bank Governor, Mary Jones, as Auditor General, I wrote a letter to the President, Mary Jones. I said, show me the country where somebody walk in the bank and in cash $100,000 check, put it in a bag, and then go divide it. Show me. Where somebody walk and in cash 10,000, 100,000, 200,000 check over the counter. Show me in the world where you go in cash company check. Like even my company here, where I say, if I were in cash company check over the counter, I get busted, I go to jail. Because all company check must be deposited. That's the rule in America. But in Liberia, when I was doing, for example, the county development audit, superintendents were in cashing $100,000 check and putting it in a bag and going to Lofa or Niba or whatever and distributing the money. So the banking system in Liberia got to be cleaned up. And if people are saying they all got their money to the banks, then we have to do a complete overhaul and audit of the banking system to see how many of these loans are in default. And is it insider trading that they're doing in Liberia? We just saw another bank got bought over because they were about to go bankrupt. So a lot of people will argue to you. I bet you speak a Tara, I think I read something where you say, oh, I took a loan. $1 million loan. Well, what collateral did you have for $1 million loan? Can you go in this country and take $1 million loan? You better have some collateral, man. So, but these are the questions that people are not asking. Okay, you got a loan. How did you get a loan? Did you use influence peddling? Did you use your influence in the bank to get a loan? Was the loan given on an arm's length transaction? Was it legitimate? Did you have collateral? Because I don't know any country where somebody just get a $1 million loan easily like that. But in Liberia, it's possible. So there are a lot of ways that you could quickly, within 6 months, demonstrate that a new sheriff is in town. One, as a president, you got to distance yourself from the group. You got to be above. No matter your weaknesses, people will look at you and say, you know what? I believe in the integrity of that person. And don't mess around with them. Number two, don't focus on reform. Use the existing laws that already exist and punish people under those laws. Number three, clean up the banking sector. Because I will tell you one thing as an accountant and as a finance guy. You know what Thomas Jefferson was so much afraid of banks?
Why?
Why? Because he felt that banks are the most evil. I don't agree with Thomas Jefferson, but if you look at all the financial collapse in the world, it's not possible for there to be systematic corruption in any country. And you can disprove it. There cannot be the level of corruption that is in Liberia without the agreement by the banking system. The banking system is the problem. There will not be a collapse of Enron without JP Morgan or all these other banks supporting, or at least looking the other way. So this is why I believe the central bank governor failed, in my judgment. And he and I had a lot of disagreement. He and I don't see eye to eye. because I was pushing him to clean up the banking sector. Because as an Auditor General, I was overseeing the whole government, and I saw at one point where somebody willy-nilly created a fictitious account at the bank, at Echo Bank, falsify the president's signature, falsify the minister of finance official signature, and in a matter of a day or two, transfer $1 million willy-nilly to a fictitious account. How is that possible? So I told the central bank governor, the thing they're doing in America, we need to do a stress test on this bank. We need to figure out what's going on in the banking sector, because my fight against corruption is never going to succeed without cleaning up the banking sector. So these are the areas that I would target immediately. And I can tell you the private banks will collaborate. And I will tell you one thing, and then you can double check the Tiawan Congo when he was Solicitor General. The international community said, freeze all the assets, right? They wanted to freeze Taylor people assets. The Liberia Bank, FBDR, the bank that's supposed to be the government bank, refused to cooperate. So unless we can begin to look at some of these issues, number one, leadership and integrity, focus on punishment and cleaning up, be a sheriff, go out and fight crime, fight economic crime, and forget about all the reform. Because how many laws can we pass? We got public financial management law, we turbo. You know what I told Ellen Sally one day? I said, turbo law. Huh? Whether you like turbo or not, he was far ahead of his time in terms of the kind of law that he had in 1972 for Liberia. I mean, the executive laws are so good. In fact, the executive law that I was operating under is far more powerful than the Auditor General Law of America. Turbo was that far ahead in thinking. So all you have to do, use the current laws that are on the books. You can clean up that country.
Okay.
But if you try to go through the reform route first, before punishment, guess what's going to happen? You're going to need a legislature. And as long as you need them, they're going to try to compromise you. Because it becomes that, hey, you want to come after me? I'm not going to pass your law. I'm going to strangle you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But enforce the existing law.
So you have said a lot of things that sound really good, and could make for good campaign promises and campaign rhetoric. What's going to make you? Why should we take you any differently?
Because I've been there and done that. I was the Auditor General of Liberia, and this is not boasting. Okay, I'm not trying to be a Donald Trump here, but I'll tell you one thing though. I'll tell you one thing. You go to the European Union, you ask them, all the Liberians, including Ellie, who you trust most with your money. They say John Morlu. You go to the American government, you say who you trust most. They will say John Morlu. And I can prove this. One, the Obama administration believes so much in my integrity and my stand on corruption and accountability. I was the only person that was single-handedly picked and nominated by the United States government to be Undersecretary General for Oversight at the UN, equivalent to the Auditor General of the United Nations. I asked the American, why me? I don't want it. They said, no, because you have brought transparency and you are the right person to clean up the United Nations. I went to interview, I met with all the Undersecretary Generals. But Ban Ki-moon needed. And this is what people miss. People say, oh, he didn't get a job. But no. If you can go and Google the Washington Post article about the chief investigator post of the UN. That post has been vacant for almost 10, 15 years. And everybody was bidding on the Secretary General to appoint somebody to that post. So he called me in July on a Saturday and said, look, out of 135 people, you guys are narrowed down to 3. It was me, Canadian lady, and South African. But I was the only one with the accounting background who has served in the developing country, but more importantly, I also had the investigative background. Okay, so I had a forensic credential, and I had the auditing and the accounting credential. I had all three. But the Secretary General said, I need you to help me clean up the system. So I want you to be the chief investigator of the United Nations. Saturday, July. I called my wife. My wife said, did you read the Washington Post article? I said, what do you mean? She said, I'm sending it to you right now, but that post that they just offered you. She said, moving from what? A fire to a frying pan. Don't take it. Immediately, I called back the Secretary General. I said, I'm not going to take that job. So what I'm telling you here, if I had wanted, and this is an earnestly in her interview, and I'm only mentioning this because people need to know, because in her interview with Rodney Sear in 2011, August, she made a joke. She said, oh, the Americans supported him to be under Secretary General, but he did not get it. You know, that was the lowest time in my life where my president will be happy that I did not get the second highest post at the United Nations. But that said, she said, oh, but they offered him another job. It was not just another job. It was the chief investigator of the United Nations, which means I will be over UNMIL, I will be over all the peacekeeping missions, I will be the biggest guy investigating the whole United Nations. So in terms of credibility, the international community, by their own appointment, by their own confidence, as I speak, understand they will trust me more with their money than that of the people who are running for president. Number two, I don't need to convince Liberian people because they know I gave up a $15,000 job. Okay? $15,000 according to the president I was making. But I'm going to declare to you today, I just didn't make $15,000. Some month I made $5,000, some month I made $10,000, some month I made $25,000. Because it was a contract and it was based on the exchange rate, because I was being paid in euro. So as the exchange rate went up, and also it was based on the number of days I spent in the country, because it was a contract. But in any event, let's agree that it's $15,000. I was willing to keep my integrity and walk away from a $15,000 job. And secondly, I was willing to walk away from a president who was so close to me that I did her book proposal. The child would be great. I walk away from a friendship with Rob City, a guy who was, everybody know, a best friend of John Morlu. I walk away from all of that. So I think I've been there. I have done that. I might not be perfect. Only Jesus Christ is perfect. But when it comes to the issue of public money, and you come from Virginia Tech, so you can know I come from UVA. Whether you like Thomas Jefferson or not, he's a man who believes in transparency. Who said one day he will want to live long enough so that the public finances of America can be published in the newspaper. So that every American can see how their money is collected and spent. This is not a direct quote, but that was Thomas Jefferson's statement. So, like Thomas Jefferson, I believe strongly that democracy only succeeds if there's accountability. That democracy only succeeds if there's transparency in how public money is collected and spent. And more importantly, if there's a rule of law that enforces the abuse of public resources. Without those three fundamental foundations, you're not building a democracy. You are building something that's going to collapse. And nothing is more possible for the potential collapse than to build a democracy of corruption. Because corruption, as I've always said, undermines the rule of law. Because guess what? Justice becomes for the highest bidder. Those who can bribe the system get justice. If things are not transparent, those who get job are not a guy from MIT, are not a guy from Virginia Tech. Those who get job are those who can maneuver the patronage system. Accountability is simple word, right? Big word, accountability. It basically means account. I'll give you $5 to spend to build school, account for the $5. We did not say account for $5.10. We did not say account for $4.95. We said we give you $5. So account for that $5. And for me, unless that is done, we don't have a democracy in Liberia.
So UNMIL forces are, they're going to be drawing down from Liberia. And the next president will have to contend with how to deal with the country when you don't have the support of UNMIL. So my question here is what are your thoughts about the timetable for UNMIL's exit, and how can you assure people that under a Morlu presidency that there will be political stability and security?
Well, you need a stable environment for people to live. You need peace and security for people to have hope. But here's my take on UNMIL. I think they should have been gone in 2012. Okay? Number one, they did that in Sierra Leone. After the second round, after the second election, Tijan Kapa, UNMIL left. They have stability. But Liberia is missing two ingredients that is causing people to have the kind of level of anxiety about UNMIL. When the country is very poor, and in the midst of poverty, you got unequal, illegal wealth distribution to 1/10 or 1% of the population. That in itself is instability by itself. With or without UNMIL, people will get fed up and rise up. UNMIL being in Liberia for another 6-7 years does not really make Liberia to put its act together. Okay? And we don't want to create a situation where we're not only depend on the international community to help us fight Ebola, to sponsor our educational institution, to pay for everything that works, but you also want them to provide you security. If that's what you want, then just ask the Americans to send calling power to take over the country as a trusteeship. Because that's effectively where you are now. You are under the protection of who? The United Nations. And once you're under the protection of the United Nations, it might not be legally written that you are under a trusteeship, but you're already a de facto trusteeship of the international community. Liberians got to choose a path of sovereignty and independence, or they have to choose a path that they're going on now, continue dependency and pretending that they have a democracy in the country. So if Sierra Leone can do it after their second term election after the war, why haven't we been able to do it?
But the issue at hand here is that there is an election coming up.
But there was an election in 2011. There was an election in 2006. So after the 2011 election was our second successive election.
So you don't think that UNMIL should withdraw after the 2007?
No, they should withdraw. I said they should have been gone.
So you think, okay, given as it is right now, you think they should continue with the plan to withdraw this year?
Yes. I think they should continue with the plan to withdraw. If Liberian people want peace, they will have peace. But guess what? If you leave UNMIL there after the election, the next government will say, I need UNMIL here. The country not yet stable. So they will be making the same argument. All right? I think in fairness to the Liberian people, UNMIL should have left and let Ellen Sirleaf secure peace on her own. But they have babysat Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government. They have pretty much babysat her the whole time, giving her all the protection. So she really haven't been a full-fledged president like Doe or Taylor or Totman or Tobawell. All right? She has a government that is effectively provided security by the international community. So again, I think we should not create a moral hazard where the next government will say it's not fair to us. You were there for 12 years, now you're about to leave us, our country not stable. We will make the same plea to the international community come 2018. So my guess is leave and let Liberian people fight it out. Okay? They will not go to war. They will not go to war. I don't think anybody is going to go to war. But if they want to go to war, right? If they want to go to war, is that the path they choose? Let it be the chosen of the Liberian people. But having only there to babysit us for another whatever, how many more years that people want? I don't think so. I think people are just making the argument take us through the election. Well, we said that. They got through the election in 2011. Now they're going to take us through this election. And they might as well. And I believe in the end, Army is going to stay. I don't think they're going to draw down. They're still going to have complete control over security with the perception of the Haitian over the Liberian. But they themselves believe in the babysitting of country. So I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to withdraw. But the fight that Liberians, after almost 12 years of peace, you guys are still begging for UNMIL and even debating the issue that UNMIL should stay is a sign of complete disappointment, and that we haven't moved forward an inch. I think at this point we should be celebrating. Thank you, UNMIL, for bringing peace. Thank the international community for bringing peace. But guess what? Today, people are angrier than they were in 2005. Some people even believe people are angrier today than they were under Charles Taylor because food prices are high, massive suffering in Liberia. Yeah, we blame it on Ebola, but even if before Ebola, remember now, before Ebola, there were what? Early must calm down campaign. People were already angry in 2011, 2013, 2014. People were angry that the president must go. But the point is, if we have not been able to secure peace on our own, and we have allowed this UNMIL to babysit us, and now we want UNMIL to babysit us, UNMIL is going to continue to babysit us for the longest that we can. And I think sometimes we need to say, okay, here's a point where we have to either die or leave. And I think Liberia should make that decision and have the biggest party for UNMIL and thank the international community for a job well done. Thank you. We can take care of our peace. The government, people are afraid that the government is going to use the police against them. The government is going to do this. The government is going to do that. Guess what? The government is also composed of human beings. And not every soldier, not every police is in line with brutality. There are some who are. But the danger will be if the government try to create any kind of chaos, the government loses too. So I think it will be in the government interest to maintain peace and stability. And it will be in the interest of Liberian people to demonstrate maturity. But the question really people are asking, and this is the big elephant in the room, right? People don't want to say it. And I talk to all the politicians. Everybody believe and have already concluded in their mind that there's a fix in the works for the election. As far as they're concerned, Ellen Sally have already decided that she's going to cheat. And they're going to go to war if that happens. So the whole idea of UNMIL staying is not so much about individual personal security, but politicians believe that Ellen is going to fix the election and they should have the forum to dispute, to demonstrate without police brutality. And if we can't have an election without such fear, then take the hard bullet and settle for General Colin Powell or Wesley Clark. I mean that's the way. I mean I'm not trying to be unreasonable, but I'm also trying to be practical here. UNMIL staying in Liberia is a lot of donor money that is going into UNMIL. Come on, $200 million. I mean, imagine now. America brought DACOM, right? The company DACOM. They said they spent over $200 million to build the military. The Chinese have spent a lot of money to build the police and the British. And, I mean, a lot of money have been invested in the security sector. The Swedish are investing in the security sector. Everybody with money is investing in the security sector. Then after 2 years, we stay whining and complaining about UNMIL staying. I don't want to downplay the anxiety, but let's give the obligation to Ellen Sirleaf. Her final hour, this is her final moment to transition a country. If she fails, then she end up like Doe. Then she end up like Tobo, right? Because she will be the first president if she does the right thing. And this is where presidential leadership comes in. She got to rise above. You got to rise above like Tijan Kaba. I don't know whether you remember Tijan Kaba of Sierra Leone. Okay? He was a post-war president. He won first term, second term. Third term, he partly lost. He walked away. Right? You got Kufua in Ghana. He partly lost. He walked away. But Babo, he didn't want to run away, right? Laurent Gbagbo did not want to walk away. Abdoulaye of Senegal did not want to walk away. In fact, he didn't walk away. He got defeated. But Senegal is a strong democracy, more stable, so they were able to weather the storm, right? Kenya, Kibaki, what happened to Kibaki? He didn't want to walk away. Kenya went into flames, right? They almost collapsed. So the question becomes for Ellen Sirleaf, does she want to be a Laurent Gbagbo, or a Kibaki, or Abdoulaye, or does she want to take the higher role and be a Tijan Kaba, or be a Kufua? That's the choice she has to make. And the security of the country rests in your hand. And she has to make that choice as a matter of being the president and as human being, as part of her own legacy. And I think UNMIL being around will take that choice from Ellen Sirleaf. We will never really know the true Ellen Sirleaf if she hasn't been able to govern all aspects of the country. She's governing only a little bit here and there. So she has not been a true president for the first 2 years of her administration. GMAC, right? The GMAC was the co-president for the first 2 years. The American ambassador was a co-chair and she was the chair. So for the first 2 years, we had GMAC, right? So GMAC left. But we have our UNMIL. And the SRSG effectively running a significant portion of the country, stability and security, which is a fundamental requirement of any country to protect and defend its people. But that fundamental requirement that is in the Constitution has been taken away from our president and given to. So at the end of the day, how do we write Ellen Sirleaf history? We're going to say, oh, she was a president running the country on one hand, and UNMIL and the United Nations were running there. So she has never really been tested. So let UNMIL leave in June. Let Ellen Sirleaf be the president. Let us see her in action. Let her transition the country to democracy. But I will tell you, is she a Kibaki, a Laurent Gbagbo, or Abdoulaye, or is she a progressive African president like Tijan Kaba and Kufua and left power even in the midst of defeat? That's the choice she has to make.
To be fair, you're not talking about whether Ellen would stay over and go into a third term.
No.
Because, okay.
No,
because all the other
that.
references are
no.
people who actually wanted to stay for a third term. So you're saying whether to
Gbagbo win.
Yeah,
and he lost.
There's
right?
a suggestion that Ellen
no.
What you're saying is really you're saying that maybe for Unity Party to stay over.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not saying Ellen Sirleaf the individual. Okay. I'm not saying Ellen Sirleaf the individual, but I premise my comment here when I said the whole reason politicians are saying UNMIL must stay on. Whether you talk to journalists like you, I've talked to a lot of people, stakeholders of Liberia, and the biggest concern, they don't want to say it, that there's a fix in the works. Whether true or not, they believe that And again, let's come to history, right? Liberia has never really had a genuine, transparent election that everybody say, yes, this is it. This one was won fairly. There's always grumbling in the background. Samuel Doe cheated, Charles Taylor cheated, Eddie cheated in 2005, 2011. So there's always that historical. And Liberians are right to be suspicious, Jeff, because 1927, Charles D.B. King made us enter what? The Guinness Book of Record by winning more votes. But right? So Liberia has a historical context that electoral fraud has been the way of life in Liberia. And like the same question you asked me about diaspora Liberian versus Liberian living there, the suspicion is there because there's a context, there's a history, okay? There's an actual history of people behaving a certain way. So no, I'm not saying Ellen Sally wants to be in Tertiary, but what I'm saying, she wants to continue though. And her continuation of her third term through whatever means, maybe the vice president that she has decided to support, she will do everything she can to win. And Jeff, I mean, you know, not to belabor other issues here, but Liberia also has a history of punishing every president. We either kill them or we throw them in jail. Right? Well, Tobodo, we killed him, right? Charles Taylor, he locked up in jail, right? Julie Bryan, may his soul rest in peace, was locked up, right? And I don't think Ume Bryan ever recovered from that. Even that one day he spent in jail, that Ume never recovered from that. So at the back of Ellen's mind too, she has that historical context. And people believe she will do everything to prevent that from happening to her. I think that would be the biggest mistake in Liberia. All right? And this is what I told some of the political people. I said, look, I am one of the hardest men when it comes to killing people. But I'm also a Christian in my own heart. And I'm going to tell you one thing. And I told every politician, they have an agreement. Whoever becomes president of Liberia should get at least $1 million that they do in Botswana. Give her a big house. Let her go sit down and watch the country run. But everybody else is a fair game. Like Senegal, right? Who's going after Abdullah Wade? But his children, his cabinet, is fair game. All right? So maybe this is the way out for Liberia. So that everybody is not afraid. Madam President, we will give you $1 million on the day of inauguration for whatever job you did. You are president. We can't erase that. We will give you $500,000 to live until you die. We'll give your vice president $250,000. Become the practice as of that day. We can find the money. I mean, if somebody can walk away with $800,000 at MPA, you can find $1 million to give to a president. I would really like to see that. I like every city to live, to see Liberia run differently, so that she can live in the country and nobody harass her, and then she live in $1 million immediate check on day one. You get $1 million, $500,000 every year until you die. But everybody else is a fair game. Now, some people say Ellen will believe that is pretense. That's not really your thinking. But I really mean it from the bottom of my heart, because I spent a lot of time in Botswana, as I always tell you. I love Botswana. And one of the reasons why they're so stable is because they cherish and reward their presidents. Instead of all waiting for Ellen Sedi to get more Abraham, whatever, $5 million, Ellen Sedi can live on $1 million in Liberia. And she not. She can. And this is the same question that you asked me earlier. What other programs? Jeff, yes, we fight corruption. But I'm not naive to also think that unless we can give older generation people a way out. Come on, should Amos Sawyer at 70 years old still be working? No, I mean, Dr. Sawyer is a nice guy. I like him, I respect him. He must have got along very well in government. But when I look at them, and all of these people who are working in government, and they're still struggling with young people like you trying to make a living. Must we not have a system that gave older generation people a dignity of life in their final days on this earth, must they work until they're 100-year-old? I mean, how many of our people have left government and died in peace? I was in Monrovia, I saw Jenkins' car. I mean, people putting a picture out there. That's the guy when I was in Liberia as a kid. Everybody scared of the guy. He was a more powerful man. When he speak, everybody jitter. He was even more powerful I think than Samuel Doe. But everybody let that poor man die like a nobody. And today, everybody that is in government, before you were born, Jeff, is still trying to remain in government. So when do you come in? So again, corruption has to be fought, and that's the only way we can get the resources to create this kind of platform where people can gracefully exit and build their houses in Duporo and Broadway and Canave and Lofa and Nimba and be able to say, you know what, I did my public service and I'm retiring. And I can bet you a lot of people will be happy and stability will return to Liberia. But now, Jeff, there is no retirement for these people. Okay? You are a senator today, you lose power, you're going to walk the street. You are a minister today, you lose power, you're going to walk the street. So we have to have a way so that people can know, even this great country we live in, America, right? Whether you like it or not, the guy will say, you know what, in the end, I'll get my social security. There are Liberians who work here all their life. Huh? They are still working. They want to retire, but they want their social security to live in Liberia. So America can send in their social security living in Liberia. Liberians who are working the system in the US today are living in Liberia on social security. But why can't we have a system that grants people that kind of opportunity? Other than that, we'll never get fresh blood in the system. You can't be competing with your father for the same job. You know, it'll be hard for you to take job from your old man. So, and the more older people remain in the system, they're tired, they're just there because they gotta live. So you have no innovation in the system. So one of the things that we will be doing and I will be pushing is how do we have a retirement system, whether like they have in South Africa or in Chile, or looking at Chile, the Ashigo system, where people can actually be able to live a life in Liberia. You know, and Jeff, you know, again, let me punctuate all of this by saying every Liberian is not corrupt. Every Liberian is not corrupt. Because I'm a Liberian. I know I'm not corrupt. No, I don't think. I know I'm not corrupt. Every Liberian is not corrupt. We make the mistake and say, this I've been here since J.J. Robert time. Oh, everybody is corrupt. No, every Liberian is not corrupt. Number two, point I want to take away. Number two, it is not the obligation of every Liberian to fight corruption. It is the obligation of the government that is paid to fight corruption. If a Liberian want to help in fighting corruption, more the better. But for people to say the fight of corruption is everybody fight, no. Jeff, soon you start to say it's everybody fight, that means a losing end. It's a losing game. If you say everybody is corrupt, or Liberia has always been corrupt, all of those languages is justification for why the system should remain the way it is. And you know, and I know, in this country, right? I'm not responsible to fight corruption. If I fight corruption and I fight corruption, and I have a whistleblower in America, what did they do? They reward me for reporting. If the government can recover, I get a percentage. So if it was my obligation, why would the government be rewarding me? So I think our president, and sometimes even the international people, they like to say corruption is everybody's fight. No, it's not. I was paid as Auditor General to fight corruption. Jeff, you and I never share. Did you ever get a dollar on my 15,000? No, you didn't. So I'm getting paid to fight corruption. You're not getting paid, but they say you are responsible to fight corruption. No. So everybody is not corrupt. Everybody is not responsible. And we have to find a meaningful way so that people can exit government so that new people can come in the system and bring the innovation that is needed to move the country forward. At this point, in Liberia today, the children are trying to push their parents out of the post. But their parents say, "My man, I've been here longer than you." So kids are graduating for college, there's no opportunity. And the reason there's no opportunity because the older generation is not exiting fast enough.
So you seem like you would support that bill, the pension bill that people refer to as very extravagant, that they were trying to pass to provide pension and retirement benefits for president, vice president, senators, and legislators.
Well, you know, I support pension because here I give my employee 401k because I want them to invest and live their life beyond my little company, right? I don't have to do it by law because I'm a small company, I'm a small business. But I've always believed that pension is okay because people have to be able to be assured that they will retire. So yes, I support pension. But not necessarily at this time in Liberia supporting pension for elected officials. No.
So just for president?
For president, vice president, and political appointees, no pension. Political appointees, elected officials, no pension. Okay? We don't do that here. What should we do there? Number one, we not have the resources. We want professionals like you to come in the system. But if you choose the route to be a political appointee, you're in a different class. You don't get pension as a political appointee. Why should you get pension as an elected official? And in fact, guess what I want to do? Guess what the research I've been doing? We need to, not only pension, to have a different incentive for legislatures in Liberia. All right? For example, like in Alabama and some other state, you are paid by the number of sitting. So for every day you sit, you get $150. You don't sit, you don't get paid. You take agriculture break, you don't get paid because you're on agriculture break. In the US, the whole agriculture break started in the US because of what? Because everybody, there were no roads, there were no means of transport. You're the transportation engineer, there were no means of transport, right? So people had to congregate to Philadelphia once in a while, right? And they're there for the 3 months, right? Because it would take Thomas Jefferson how many days to move from Virginia to go to Philadelphia on horse, right? So when they're not in session, they don't get paid. So the whole council agriculture break came because there was lack of transportation in America, and most of these guys who were running were farmers, and they needed to go back home. But you cannot be working on your farm while you're getting paid. So the legislature who claim to be in the interest of Liberian people should take the same model that we have in Virginia and other places and say, look, like in Vermont, if you're a legislator, I think Vermont, one of the states, if you're a legislator, you only get $250 a year.
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, eh? Yeah, New Hampshire, not Vermont. All right. So I have studied all the various schemes or how legislators get compensated, and I think we waste a lot of money on our legislature and less productivity. All right. I mean, these guys are just supposed to be passing law, come in, spend 3 months, pass law, go do their thing. But why in Liberia? Why do we have to have a permanent legislature? We don't need it. We need it as part-time people. And that will save millions to go into education. That will save millions to go into healthcare. All right? And people will begin to find career, Jeff. People will begin to find career outside of politics. Because like here, some people are bankers, right? Some people are transportation engineers like you. Some people are accountants like me. In fact, the ARCPA, the association of which I'm a member of, give people money now for you to run for Congress because they want more CPAs in Congress. Just to see where you got more lawyers. Oh, but I had the lawyers today in U.S. Congress. You got a lot of lawyers. I think we got about 15 CPAs. And now there's a big push out there for CPAs to run for Congress. Because you need accountants, you need financial people in Congress just as much as you need lawyers, just as much as you need engineers. Right? So if you do not create an incentive to increase productivity in the legislature, okay? I mean, some people don't even come to work. After the holiday, they stay out, but they still getting paid. Where in the world do you get paid and you don't work? Only in the liberal legislature. So we need to change the incentive. It's not just the executive, but I think we can save a lot of money, whole lot of money, if we decided to put the legislature on. You come to work, you get paid $150 per city.
Yeah, I wanted to just get back because the question about the security, I know you mentioned that it's a lot of concern on the side of journalists and other people in the political arena that the president may try to extend the term for her party and somehow cheat in the election. But there are real concerns by ordinary people. If you look at the riotings that go on, you look at the ritualistic killings and things like that. People in the country are reasonably unsettled about the security of the country, especially even in light of Graves' death. You didn't specifically say how you plan to assure the Liberian people that a presidency led by Morlu would how you will offer
Number one,
security.
Number one, all right. Ghana, Zimbabwe, for other places. Botswana, a lot of other countries in Africa. How stupid it is. But what we haven't done, okay? We haven't professionalized the security sector. In this country, people go in the military, they don't get paid a lot. But there's an incentive when you leave, right? Whether you go on the GI Bill, there are a lot of. We haven't incentivized and put where we encourage. I know my friend, my roommate, right? He's now Lieutenant Colonel, heading up the ladder. He was going to be general, hopefully, Scott, one day. My own roommate from UVA, he graduated from one of the best schools in America. He went in the military. My other friend, who representing all the terrorists now, Derek, okay? All right, no, he's a military guy, right? He's a military lawyer. He's a defense lawyer. He's a Marine guy, so he represents terrorists in Guatemala, right? One of the smartest guy, one of the UVA graduate, one of the Washington, the guy law degree, went back into the military. So you got not just people who want easy life. The U.S. military actually attract the best medical people, the best engineer, right? How much do we pay them in Liberia? What respect do we give them? Why aren't we encouraging professionals who got master degree to actually go into the military? So we gotta incentivize. But we can only do that by increasing this fiscal space, the amount of money that we have. And you can bring in a lot of international money, but you gotta be strategic about it. If I were president, all the international money I put into Liberia, I would want to change the perception of the Liberian military. That you can go into the military and have dignity. You're not just a knuckle. Okay? It's similar with the police. You pay the police $150 and you expect him to do miracle. No. A typical Liberian, okay? A typical Liberian have a dependency ratio of 18. You're only probably second to Eritrea, that's 24. So that means for every Liberian that works, you got 18 people hanging behind you. So a police guy is not just a police guy with 2 kids, you got a whole village. But you pay $150, $200, blah, blah, blah. In Ghana, they raise it up to, I think, $500. So instead of paying somebody $15,000, $20,000 here and there, instead of one person stealing $800,000, I keep emphasizing that just as an example, instead of few people walking away with $80 million, instead of people buying $80,000 and walking away, incentivize the police. Whether we like it or not, if you pay people higher wages, they come. And I will tell you, I've done this in Liberia. I went there. They said the government salary is $75. I told the European Union and the Americans and the president, I said, John Morlu cannot pay somebody $75. These are professionals. Minimum salary, $300. Janitor, $250. Boom. I say, I rather not get gas, but I'm going to put it in salary. This is why you go to GSC under my administration, 80%, 85% was salary also. Okay? So, guess what I did? I recruited the best Liberia has. Because a typical person that go to school want a reward. Just as when you start a business, you want a profit. A guy goes to school to get a reward on his time that he spent and his money. We got to encourage more professionals to see police, to see security work, NSA work, to see the military as a career. And the only way we're going to do that is to create the incentives. And by doing that, you can recruit the best. If you are paying police people today $500 in Liberia, which I think you can afford. If GSC could pay auditor $500, you can pay policeman who's taking out his life to protect you. You can pay him $500. Ghana doing it. You can do it. And in fact, if you were to create such a program, maybe you have gotten some international people to supplement your effort, right? If you did that, you will attract the best, and you will attract more people across Liberia who will want to see the police as a career, who will want to see the security sector as a place to actually make a living. But now, we have a low expectation of our police. So when UNMIL leave, the police will always be the police. The lowest crumb that we look at in Liberia, unfortunately, we don't value them. They don't feel value. I don't even think the typical police in Liberia feel love. I mean, we badmouth them all day for petty crimes. We know they take bribe, they corrupt, they got this in your tree. All right? We don't even respect them. And we don't pay them. So what you have in the police is a bunch of people who are probably discouraged, unmotivated, and looking for additional ways to make money. So UNMIL is in Liberia. You heard the last one say what the police are the one actually creating a situation where you have armed robbers, right? There were a lot of accusations like that, where even the police director coming out and saying there are some police that are doing that. Why will a policeman be forced that's supposed to be protecting people, creating an avenue to make extra money by fomenting and tormenting the neighborhood? Fomenting scheme, creating scheme to torment the neighborhood in which they live. So to answer your question, UNMIL is not the solution. The solution is creating the right incentive. The same way I created the right incentive today, everybody want to be an auditor in Liberia or accountant. All right? I give them dignity. I give the profession dignity. I say, you can be a John Morlu or better. You don't just have to be an accountant sitting up behind the door pushing voucher for people. So it takes psychology compounding with good marketing and incentivizing the police and the security sector so that people can go there, Jeff. You don't have shortage of people that are unemployed in Liberia. Okay? Vanisha say, kids who are graduating, the chairman of the United Party, he said, I'm sorry for you. There's no job. There's no opportunity. They're not going to face the problem. But you're talking about police problem. You're talking about military problem. These are people who are graduating with whatever their education level is, whatever the quality is, at least they have taken the initiative to go to university. Let's give them a big thank you for that, right? But what I will be doing as a government, they said, look, you can go in the police. Look at these other police people that are in America. When they leave, they become big people, right? I mean, you see them on TV, they become expert, they become international this, international that. We have to be able to incentivize even the university students that are graduating. The same way in teaching, right? We don't encourage them to go into teaching because we look at teachers like, oh, he's a teacher, man. In Japan, who's the most respected man? Teachers are the most respected people. The police, the military. In Liberia, we respect the minister Every kid want to be assistant minister. Everyone want to be deputy minister. Everybody want, you know how they can call it? The green letter. Everybody want a green letter from the president appointing them. But nobody want to take a profession. And being in the police is a profession. Being in the military is a career. Being in the security sector is a career. Being an auditor is a career. Being a transportation engineer is a career. So, to answer your question again, and I think I'm kind of going back and forth, is create the right incentive on making stay in Liberia for 100 years. And you can invest another 1 billion in training people. Train them, send them to West Point, send them to Quantico here in Virginia, send them to London, let them be trained by the MFI, whatever. The point is, you bring the guy back home, and he goes home, and 18 people looking at him for a living, and you have not created the right incentive. If a policeman died in a line of fire today, what happened to him? He get retirement? Does he get paid out? The guy who died in Nimba, some security guy that went to Nimba and died. I saw him, I read a newspaper, the wife is still crying. He was, I think, in the president entourage, SSS guy, he got killed, right? What happened to him? The guy who died in between when the police director and the former SS director, Ashwa P, were fighting. What happened to him? So, Jeff, what happened to people like that? It's not just a salary, but are we creating the right incentive to attract the right caliber of people that can serve and bring about stability in the country? I don't think we have done that, and I think we can do more, and I think UNMIL is not going to do that for us. We have to think outside of the box. We have to encourage university graduates to look at police, to look at the military, to look at the security sector as a way to make a career.